So, tracing is something that's always really contentious in the art community, huh? It causes arguments, issues, even all the way up to big drama issues. Well, this might be a controversial take, but I actually don't think tracing is all that bad. And before, you grab the torches and pitchforks, just put them down. I'm gonna explain why. But first, let's jump into the art. The art you're seeing in the background is actually from my beginning at the Color Wheel Challenge that I've seen going around. I really wanted to try it out. I'm doing little shorts with it so far. I only have one over on TikTok of it. And I really liked how this started out with red and drawing Karlach from Baldur's Gate 3 in my style, because that was a lot of fun. I will say that her outfit gave me a lot of trouble with how detailed it is and all the crisscrossing straps on her. Honestly, Baldur's Gate 3 characters have really detailed outfits, and that's really frustrating when you're trying to simplify things for a design. But I'm really enjoying doing this challenge. Now, I will say I've already got orange figured out. Anybody who knows anything about what's been going on will know why, but orange is going to be Goku, because I can't not, especially with everything that's happened recently. But if you have any suggestions for any of the other colors, let me know. It doesn't matter what color. If you have any ideas for them, just let me know. Make suggestions. But that's about it for the art, so let's get back into the topic. Alrighty, so like I said at start, I actually don't think tracing is that bad. Ultimately, it's the potential additional actions or inactions of the tracer that determine whether or not it's an overall negative in each instance. Unfortunately, there are just so many instances of the tracer acting in bad faith that now the action of tracing itself is being regarded as a bad thing. I wanted to point that out because I know people are going to get mad at me just over saying tracing isn't that bad, but it's true. As it stands, it's not uncommon for individual actions, like the actual action or technique, to be misconstrued as the bad thing when it's the person acting that's not doing things correctly or is acting improperly and doing things that are bad. Tracing, inspiration, using bases, even referencing. All of those have been treated as bad at some point or other, or are still treated as bad by certain people in the community, just because bad actors have used them in a dishonest and improper way. Like, I'm not kidding, I have actually seen people argue that you shouldn't use references ever because it's cheating. But those same people will be like, well, you need to learn all of the basics and learn proper anatomy. How are you going to do that without references? If you're looking at, and I'm talking, these people will say any references are bad. Any references are bad. Whether that's pictures that you take of yourself, if you're referencing it, you're cheating. Pictures that you look at to learn anatomy. Oh, if you look at pictures, you're cheating. How are you supposed to learn anatomy? If you can't look at something that helps you understand the anatomy, you're not going to actually learn anatomy. But that's the frustrating thing that people do whenever they go insert thing here bad. But let's talk a little bit about tracing itself. Despite its bad rap, tracing is something that can be a very useful learning tool, especially for younger artists. If learned to utilize it properly, I phrased that very poorly. If you learn to utilize it properly, it can be honestly a fantastic learning tool. And that aside, it's also a completely necessary tool for certain art forms and careers, like it or not. The most prominent example that comes immediately to mind for me has got to be tattooing. Now, before anyone who doesn't know much about tattoos or doesn't have any themselves comes for me, because it's always people who don't have any who have a hissy fit when you point this out, Tracing is actually an extremely important part of the tattoo process. After all, where do you think stencils come from? Again, for anyone unaware, the stencils are not only common practice for tattooing, but in most cases, it's recommended. Like, this ink is going into my skin permanently. I want the design to look good and look right. As someone who loves tattoo art, As someone who loves tattoo art, honestly, an artist is not going to be freehanding on me. I don't care what artist it is. I don't care how long I've known them, how long they've been tattooing, or how much I trust them. They are not coming anywhere near me with that tattoo machine if I haven't had a stencil put on me and my approval has been given for the placement and the way it looks first. It's a critical step in the process, and you get some people who are like, well, then they're not real artists. That's not the case. Very rarely are people going to just freehand the tattoo completely. And if they do, the person letting them, frankly, is very brave, even if it's a good tattoo artist, because all art, mistakes happen. Mistakes happen in all forms of art. That's why sometimes the painting process takes longer than you think it will, because you have to fix things. And unlike a painting process, there's a lot of parts in tattooing that either can't be fixed, or it's going to take a lot of trouble to fix it if it gets messed up. So, I will say, obviously, the artwork is usually first done on paper or digitally, and yes, especially nowadays, a lot of tattoo art is designed digitally, and it does not make it lesser just because it was done digitally. And then it's printed or resized and copied to the right size if necessary. And then the artist is going to trace over the line work of the design on a special material-covered paper in order to create the stencil. And tracing is a necessary step in how you get that stencil. How do you think the line work gets on the other side of the paper so they can put it on your body? And tracing is a necessary step whether it's flash or an original design. Most of my tattoos, I have several, are original designs. However, they still had to be given to the artist, and the artist traced over the design to make the stencil. And when I say original design, it's usually I've sketched up a design, an idea of what I wanted, then I gave it to my artist, and he put it together and figured out the best way for it to look on me. And he did a wonderful job. I am very happy with mine. Now, on top of that, tracing well is also a skill that takes time to develop. I used to have a coworker who actually got an apprenticeship, and during her downtime at work, because, pretty standard for the tattoo industry, unpaid apprenticeships, those are pretty common. Most people work while they do them. But during her downtime at our job, she would practice tracing assignments as well as design elements from different tattoo styles. It took a lot of work, and it was not easy, despite what people think about tracing. It was not easy. And now she does absolutely gorgeous designs and has some of the most beautiful line work that I've ever seen. And the steady hand and the line work and learning all of that took practice of tracing. She can also just draw very well. She's just good at drawing. Contrary to popular belief, tracing isn't the easy way out that people make it out to be. Taking it away from tattooing and back to tracing as a whole, it can be an extremely valuable tool if used correctly, like I said. When I was getting into digital art, for example, and while I didn't post the images I made, I had a lot of trouble getting the hang of drawing digitally. There was something about it that just was not translating properly to me, something about being able to zoom in and zoom out I struggled with, because it was like, do I zoom out? Do I zoom in? I don't know. And it took tracing and learning how to do things, and tracing bases and screenshots. It was a massive part of my adjustment to my tablet. And from basic tracing, just to get the hang of the way everything felt, just tracing ended up becoming breaking the artwork down that I was tracing into its more fundamental shapes, or even the anatomy work. And that way I was able to better understand what I was doing, and what techniques I was using, and what the fundamentals were, for the character work especially that I was doing. Tracing and breaking down those traces helped me to better understand drawing different angles, and even tension points in drapery, etc., things like that. Posing. Foreshortening was a big one, and I still struggle with that. But I'm further along now than I was before. A lot of artists do learn that way. And there's plenty of artists who wouldn't ever admit that they did, who also did that at one point in their lives, and still try and attack other artists for it. A lot of artists that I know started out with tracing paper and a how to draw book. Usually by Chris Hart. I'd like to do a video on how to draw books, and just both the impact and the ridiculousness of some of them at one point. I think that would be very interesting. And even just outside of learning, there's a lot of artists who use it as a tool, even outside of tattooing. A great example is a lot of people who do watercolor. You end up doing a sketch on paper, and a lot of times, because of the risk of messing up the sizing on that watercolor paper, you don't want to do the sketch and the erasing and all of that on your watercolor paper. You want to do the sketch on a different kind of paper, and then use a window or a light box or something like that to draw your final piece on the watercolor paper that you're going to use. If you're using a light box and you're doing that, at least to an extent, you're doing some tracing. You are doing some tracing in order to do that. That takes skill. It requires practice and a steady hand, especially if you're doing like I and some others do with it, and you put down ink before your watercolor goes down. Like, you take the ink pen, and you've got to have that steady line, or you have screwed it all up. It requires practice, a steady hand, and is a skill to be developed. But then what about the tracing bad arguments? I mean, it's been used many times to do bad things. In many situations... Sorry, I got distracted. In many situations, the arguments do have merit. But I also think people are too quick to blame the act and not the actor. We've seen major instances of it, like tracing the entire layout and composition of someone else's study of a certain DC heroine and getting caught. I know plenty of you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, that is truly all the context you really need before I continue. If you do know, keep their name out of the comments or I will remove it. I don't have any interest in having them or discussion of them as a person here, but it's a relevant example. Anyway, the thing is that the problem there wasn't even tracing bad. The problem was I traced this and now I'm going to pass it off as my own. Not only that, but when caught, there was an issue with still fighting back against giving credit and acting like they did nothing wrong, and like they didn't need to give credit in the first place and that people were wrong for asking them to give credit. That was a big problem, and also then turning around and trying to nitpick everybody else's criticism of them. Don't do that. Like, you're going to cause the full-blown Streisand effect there if you continue to do that. Don't do that. But another example of a bad actor is the whole, and let me just say, I don't mind dropping this name because I highly doubt anything will arise from it. I don't mind dropping it, unlike the other name where I think things would happen in a very bad and negative way, and I don't want to deal with that. But with this one, I don't think anything's going to happen from me name dropping on this one. But the pink cat situation, if you've heard anything about that. It was a bit ago. I'm not sure exactly how long ago. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look at Ponder Sprocket's channel and look for their pink cat video. Now, let me just say, I have no affiliation with Ponder, by the way. I just absolutely love their work, and they covered that situation better than I ever could. There's so much detail. There's so much referencing back, and I just think that that's a very, very well done video. and I enjoy listening to it while I draw, even though I've listened to it several times before. That situation in particular is a very bad one regarding tracing. I'm not going into the NFT nonsense of Pink Cat here, because no, but the tracing is the biggest problem anyway. There's badly done, by the way, tracing of both small and large artists' work that's absolutely rampant, and that the artist is trying to pass off as their own, because, oh, they traced it, now it's mine. When things are noticeably traced, and you're selling it especially, and when I say noticeably, I mean it. I mean people are looking at it and going, oh hey, that's the exact same thing as insert thing here. It's not a case of tracing bad. It's a case of creator bad, or at least creator behaving bad. And I'd say it's more so creator behaving bad, because I don't think it's, unless somebody does something egregious, I definitely don't think in the case of tracing, whatever it is they're doing, I don't think that's really grounds to say creator bad. But creator behaving bad is what's going on, and the technique used isn't what makes the situation bad. It's not. Overall, look, I do understand the viewpoint that some take with it. When you look at a lot of situations, it's so easy to say tracing bad, because the fact that tracing is what is used to cause these problems. People do use it to steal art, to avoid giving credit, and all of that, but that doesn't just mean that tracing is bad. Just because bad actors use it doesn't mean that tracing is the bad thing. People use different things all the time that are a thing that is used to do something bad, and that doesn't make the tool bad. The person who did it is still the bad one. Or the one behaving poorly. The one acting bad. But what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. I really like hearing different viewpoints, and a civil, I repeat, civil discussion about this would honestly be great. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I liked making it. I want to thank all of you for watching. I might do a storytime video next. I really need to start incorporating more art topics, because that's what I really want this channel to be, is art and art topics, not just story times. But I am going to do one before too long of my interesting past relationships. I think that'd be an interesting and fun one. As well as one from with the creepy mechanic that happened recently. It happened to my fiance, but still a very creepy man. He just was, and just no. But thank you guys so much for watching, and a special thanks to my patrons, Inside Chaos, Salmon, and Creativa Artly. You guys are so awesome, and honestly, your support means so very, very much to me. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!